Okay, so without further ado, welcome to the Selling with Human Design Masterclass. Now, who here, just to get a show of hands, who here has heard of human design already? Like, I just want to check that everyone here, yeah, we're all familiar with the system. Amazing, great, awesome. Has anyone not heard of human design? Like, is anyone brand new to human design and you're just kind of like getting started with it? Okay, amazing. A lot of people even work with it, been using it for 10 years, work with it. Yes, amazing. Cool. Been working with it for years. Amazing. Cool. So we have some experts in here who already know what this is all about. And you're probably curious. You're like, who's this Phoebe person and what the hell is she on about? So great. A lot of you are already using it in your business. Is anyone here not yet using it in their business? I would love to know if anyone is still kind of figuring out how to like apply some of these principles. Cool. Everyone's already got some experts. Got one couple people sort of in that early stage. All right, great. Cool. Use it for readings and deconditioning, figuring it out, still figuring out how to apply it. I do it for readings. I'm probably applying it to other things for myself, not yet in my business. Love using it in my business. Okay, great, cool. So this is great. Good. Quick roll call. I just want to check everyone here is some kind of coach, healer, practitioner, or facilitator. I want to make sure that we have everyone. Yes, got lots of nodding. All right, awesome. Amazing. Yes. Tammy's like, capital, yes. Denise, yes, amazing. Awesome. Love coach. I love that. All right, great. Okay, so now that we've just done that, obviously everyone that's here right now is super into human design, probably already using it to some extent, and is really interested to know what it is that I'm talking about when I say how to sell with human design. So the reason why this is important to you guys right now is because you're probably really tired of the strategies that aren't effective, right? Because you know that there's no one size fits all when it comes to business. Obviously, there's no one size fits all. If you're all here currently, right now with me, you know that we're all extremely unique and you're ready to work in alignment with your energy and tap into your superpowers in a way that amplifies your magnetism, your money, and most importantly, your impact. And you're wanting to do that in the area of sales within your business, right? So this is obviously an incredible system, but you're here right now because you want to know exactly how to apply this into an increase in sales where both you and your clients are having an amazing experience that's energetically aligned. And you've been wondering how you can show up in your business as a generator, manager, manifestor, reflector, or projector, right? So for you, if you're here, this is really about embodiment. This is like, how do I embody this in this particular context so that I'm harnessing my natural energy instead of working against it? So I want you to imagine for a moment that every time you entered into a sales conversation, you felt these three things: confident, certain, and most importantly, in integrity, because that's really the big piece here, right? Like, the reason why I came across this and kind of figured this out is because I hadn't seen anyone really teaching sales in a way that was using these energetic principles as well as in integrity where it worked, right? So there's obviously a lot of people who teach sales like traditional bro tactic sales. There are some people, and like I have some colleagues like New Earth leaders who are teaching sales in a way that is like super authentic, it's super in integrity, but I have not seen anyone bring in the energetic principles. And that's a really core, it's a core pillar of my life and my business and the way that I teach. And I use human design in everything I do, from like hiring and structuring a team to the way that I write content, the way that I market, to the way that I live my life. So it was really important for me to find out and figure out how to bring this into the sales process so that that wasn't still kind of like in the Stone Age. So that's how I feel when I enter into a sales conversation now. I have the confidence that when I'm entering into a conversation with somebody, I know what to say. I know how to engage in the conversation. I'm certain that both of us will have clarity at the end of that conversation, right? So I know how to get to a point where both the other person who's inquiring and myself will reach a point of clarity around what we want and if it is a match. And I do that and feel that with 100% integrity. I know that when I sell, I don't feel gross, I don't feel inauthentic, I never feel sleazy, and I never feel like I'm pushing something that someone doesn't need or doesn't want. So I know that everyone walks into a decision with the correct, like with the correct decision making process, right? So I always feel in integrity when I'm selling, which is like the most important thing, right? So this is what I'm here to teach you guys now. This is what happened to me. For those of you who are new to me and are kind of like, I don't know you, some of you, obviously I do know you, and it's good to see you again. In March of this year, I did a $294,000 launch. And this amazed me. Like, I wasn't expecting this, right? So this was 3 times what my team and I predicted. And actually, it was really funny because I hired a launch consultant to kind of like go over the strategy. And based on my email list, based on my audience size, like if you follow me on Instagram, you can see that I don't have many followers. Before the launch, I had 4,000, and my email list was maybe like 2,000. Like really nothing special, Like I'm no James Wedmore, right? Like I'm no manifestation babe. So based on those numbers, this launch consultant was like, yeah, she's like, to be honest, like, if you want to do 6 figures and you want to do 100K, she's like, I don't even know if that would really be possible with your, with your audience size. And she's like, I think at best you could probably hope for like 80,000. And she's like, even that would be a stretch. And she's like, and to do that, you've got to do X, Y, Z. And she really kind of told me like, she gave me this very like generator approach. And I was like, oh God, I don't know if that's gonna work for me. I don't know, man. That sounds like a lot. I don't know. And she was like, yeah, do all of this stuff, and at best you could hope for 80. And I was like, all right. So that's kind of like where I had my hopes at. And I was like, yeah, I mean, fuck, I guess if we get lucky. And as we were going through this process, I was figuring out on the fly how to implement this. So I had some affiliates, and they were asking me, they were like, how do you sell as a projector? And I was like, actually, I do this. And then I kind of really started figuring out how doing that is different to selling as a generator. And then I sat down with my affiliate manager, who had like 10 years of sales experience. And we had several conversations over the span of several months about how traditional sales is done, and how I think that's dead, and how we could reinvent that and do it differently. And then in our affiliate program, in our ambassador program, we experimented with how to do sales differently, and it was phenomenal. So what resulted is that we had a couple of our best ambassadors learn how to sell like generators and ManiGens, and me and our team had this crazy big launch where in one day where I implemented this assessment strategy, which I'm going to teach you, I had a $60,000 day in sales where I had 124 people in my inbox across Facebook Messenger and Instagram DMs in 36 hours. So this was like, to me, this was crazy. Like, I've never had this. Like, previously, my biggest launch was like 60,000, maybe even like a little bit less. Like, I'm probably rounding up. It was probably about like 59. But I have never in my life had so many people in my DMs in such a short space of time. Like, what I had figured out how to do was crazy. So this is a screenshot of like, this is a report. Obviously, I didn't create that report. That report was created for me. And this is just like a screenshot that I found when I actually had to take down my offer of assessments because so many people were in my inbox that I actually just couldn't manage it anymore. I had to take it down. So I had to remove all the posts and be like, this is close, it's close, like no more. Because so many people were jumping into my inbox asking for assessments. So, and here is the integrity piece, right? This is really important for me to like get across because, I think a lot of the time when we think about sales, and I always think about this, especially just whenever we talk about sales, there's always the integrity piece where people are like, cool, well, and I see people talk about this all the time, and they post about like so many of my friends who are incredible coaches, and they get like cold DMs, or they just get people, who are like business coaches and stuff, and they talk about closing, right? They talk about converting, and it can just like trigger this like grossness, this like really just like gross, disgusting feeling. And so this is really important to me, and it's really important to put this in here when I'm having these conversations. It has to be done where I'm listening, and sales is really, it's just a conversation. It's like, think about conscious communication in relationships, right? Think about when you are relating with your partner. It requires deep listening and it requires deep presence. And it's really important that you are like in that headspace with them. So this is a screenshot from a conversation I had with somebody who I was selling to as a projector, as in like I'm a projector. And so I was selling in the way that a projector sells, that I figured out. And I got to the point earlier on in the conversation where I was like, I actually think that based on what you've told me and based on what I'm seeing here, that this, like, she wasn't sure about what she was doing. And, it just didn't really feel like the right fit. And I was like, actually, based on what you said, I think that this could be a better business model for you, for your type. And then when she gave me her chart, I sent her some voice memos about her chart and like everything in her, because earlier on we were talking about, I was using her profile for business. Like if anyone has used Penta, I was using her Genius report, and from there I was able to configure that actually her role within a team is really better suited to like an MLM structure. So I was using human design for business, the Penta. And so I was like, my program is really for coaches. My program, the Content Emporium, is really designed to help coaches and healers with their marketing and with their content. And that's like, you don't really fit into that category. And I think that based on like what I'm seeing here in your design, like you probably wouldn't really be like that fulfilled doing like building a coaching business, and it sounds like from what you're selling, like from what you're telling me, that you just kind of want to build this coaching business because you think it's an easy way to build a business quickly, but that you don't really like coaching, or that maybe you would be bored with that type of business structure. And so I was like, if you were to go through my program, like that would be encouraging that type of business structure, and that doesn't seem like it's really aligned for you. And so then she came back and she continued to talk and asked me for another assessment. And then I was like, again, based on your chart, so I had both of her charts. I had her human design chart and I had her Genius report, her Penta chart. And I really reiterated that, like, she could do it if she wanted to, but I don't think that it would be a good investment for her. And she came, so I basically said no to her twice. So in a sales conversation where someone was like really trying to give me their money, I was like, I really don't want to take your money because I don't think that would be good for you. And I had to say it twice. And then eventually she was like, okay, I'm hearing you. I'm hearing you. So it's important to look at this and really know that you can have a lot of people arrive in your inbox and that you're doing this with integrity, right? It has to be a mutual match, because it's not about money. It's not about sales. It's about establishing a relationship, right? And it's about, helping people. Like we've all come here into this world because we want to show up and we want to serve. So making sure that you have the right match and that you're the right person for that person is really important, and there have been so many times where someone's come to me for something and I could do it, but I would prefer to refer a colleague, right? Because I'm like, they're actually better at this than me. And so why don't you speak to my friend Andrew? Or why don't you speak to my friend Carly? They are better at this than me, and they'd probably be able to help you in a much more impactful way. So that's really important. Now, for those of you who are new to me, who is Phoebe Kuhn? Well, I have helped some of the biggest brands in the world with their social media and content strategy. So I worked in advertising, marketing, and communications for over 7 years. And I helped some of my private clients do 100,000 plus program launches. And that was back in 2019, early to mid 2019. So some of my clients have been featured in Forbes and the New York Times. I'm obsessed with stories. So I am a storyteller. I graduated from film school. So I am really an artist at heart. If you look at my chart, you'll see I have an artist soul. I love writing. I love film, photography, i.e. great content. And I love traveling. I've been to 37 countries. Actually, it might be more than that now. Maybe it's 39. I think it's 39 the last time I counted. My highest value is connection, right? So obviously that explains why I'm here and talking about sales, because I really value connecting with people. I really value building relationships and connecting at a deep level as well. I don't like surface chat. Like I'm an Enneagram 7, if anyone like is into Enneagram. So I worked in advertising at one of the best agencies in the world, but I left to pursue the path of healing and transformation. And so I became, in 2018, I left my job and I became a transformational life coach. I became a healer. I studied shamanism, Buddhism, Tantra. I really went around to so many different areas of spirituality and integrated them. I studied emotional clearing. kinesiology, and I formed my own life coaching and energetic healing practice. Then after a couple of months in business, of being in a couple of months in my life coaching business, I found myself in a lot of credit card debt, because where I started my business was I was hiring a lot of business coaches and buying a lot of programs that were teaching things that really weren't working for me and weren't aligned to the way that I was designed to do things. And I just couldn't figure out why things weren't moving. I couldn't figure out why things weren't like getting going for me. And so I ended up $34,000 in debt, and I had to move back in with my mom, and I was working in the garage. So that was January of 2019. I managed to get out of debt. My intuition told me to do something really crazy. It told me to move to Bali, even though I had never been before. So that's a typo. In August of 2019, I moved to Bali with $700 in my bank account. And this was my new office, 2019, September. And then when I moved here, then I had this download one day where within 2 weeks of being here, I like scrolled past this post in my newsfeed where someone was talking about human design, and I knew that was going to be the missing piece. You know, it's like I had taken all of these leaps of faith, and I'd showed up. I managed to like pay off my debt. I managed to move countries, but I was like, fuck, you know, like if I don't make any money soon, like if I don't get my business working soon, like I'm gonna have to go back home, you know. And I've just kind of like crossed this big line, and I don't want to have to go back. And I prayed to the universe, and I was like, please, like show me the path. And later that night, I happened to see this post about human design, and I was like, this is it. Like I've heard of this. I know that this is the missing piece for me. And so I started working with human design teachers and human design coaches on how I could embody being who I was, right? So I learned how to harness the power of being a 3/6 emotional projector. And then I started writing content and copy using my defined gates centers and in a specific tone. And I became visible in less than 90 days. So in October of 2019, I launched a one-on-one offer, and I only wrote 3 pieces of copy using my organic channels. So I wasn't even really active on Instagram back then. This was really just Facebook. So you can see the screenshots. These are just my personal Facebook profile. I didn't even have a group then. And I got booked out with these 3 pieces of copy once I had figured out the energetic principles of how I could embody being a projector. And so people started asking me to teach them how I was doing it. People were like, how are you writing this way? And like, how are you doing so little and creating such big results? And so this is what I did. I invented the marketing archetypes using the human design system. So can I get a show of hands? Has anybody here not got a copy of my book, How to Market with Your Unique Blueprint? Let me know if you don't have a copy yet, because what I'll do is I'll pop the link in the comments so that anyone can download a copy now. Hold on. There we go. Alrighty. Look at that. Okay. So I just popped the link in the comments so that Megan, Rikshita, Tammy, you can all just download that, and it's free. So go for it. There you go. No worries. I can see if I can pin that to the top. No, I don't know how to do that. There's a way that you can pin comments in chats. Maybe it's not in Zoom. Maybe I'm thinking of Webinar Jam. Anyway, that's in the comments. So all right. So the marketing archetypes. And then I wrote the book on how to market using your unique design. So this is the book. The link's in the comments if you don't have a copy of it already. And the book went viral. So we had over 1,700 downloads in the 2 weeks that I had it up available on the internet. And I had to take it down because I had to temporarily take it down. So I literally just put it back up like last night or the night before for this class so that you guys could all have a copy of it as well. But it was just like creating so much buzz. So, and then in the last 18 months, I've helped over 269 people embody their design in business. And my clients have generated over $1 million combined. I don't have the exact figure currently, because obviously you can only keep up to date with so many people. So like there are only a couple people that I've like kept up to date with that have shared with me like their revenue stats, and it's definitely like somewhere between 1 and 2 million at the moment for the people that I'm accounting for, let alone the people that I'm not accounting for. So how did I break all of the sales and marketing rules, do things on my own terms, 3x industry conversions, right? So like when I'm talking about industry conversions, I really mean that what we spent and what we created there is, so do you remember how I told you the story about the launch consultant? And she was like, yeah, you'd be lucky to do 80. Like she was giving me benchmarks based off industry conversion rates, right? And we broke all of those rules. You know, like what we created, what happened in March was insane. And that was all with energetic principles. So this is what I'm going to share with you in this class now. I figured out the 6 principles of selling with human design, and this is what I'm going to run you through. So who is ready to learn the 6 principles of what I am now referring to as selling with human design? Yes. Give me a yes in the chat. Fuck yes. I do curse a little bit sometimes, only with enthusiasm though. So, oh God. Okay, amazing. Look at that. I've got 67 people live with us at the moment. That's amazing, guys. I'm so like, this is so lit that you're all like turned out for this. Like, I'm actually just chuffed. Okay, cool. So now principle number 1 is embodying your type. And what that really means, obviously, like you can embody your type, but what does it mean, right? So when I talk about embodying your type as like the first principle, so I did a post on Instagram the other day, and it was about your profit potential, right? And so if anyone has ever studied Raz, like profiting from the not self audios or his courses around profiting from the not self, really what we're looking at here is the kind of dynamic where we have the self and the not self, right? So we operate, we benefit from where we're undefined, but we operate from where we are defined. So where we have definition in our chart. And what I'll do is I'll actually just bring up my chart as a reference point, because I kind of didn't have enough time to like pimp out the slide deck too much. So let me just, hold on. Let me just bring up my chart as like a reference point. All right, so, oh my gosh, it's so hot. I'm actually sweating. Okay, cool. Okay, so all right, this is going to be a lot easier. Now, so when I talk about operating from the self and operating as our type, what we're really looking at here is our defined and our undefined centers. And so this is going to help because kind of some of the people who are a little bit newer to human design. So where we are white on our chart is where we are undefined, right? And then where we are defined is where we are colored in, right? So for anyone who needs to download their chart now, Sophie's just put a link in the chat so that you can get a copy of your chart from Jovian Archive, so that you can do that now. Someone is like not muted, so I'm just going to ask. Anyone can mute themselves. Cool. Great. Great. So where we have our little highlighted red gates, that's where we're defined, and where we're not, we're undefined. So you can see here, for example, like 64, 61, 63, I'm undefined in those gates, right? Whereas 24 undefined, 17 undefined, 43 undefined. So if you have a copy of your chart now, pin myself. What do you mean, Mike? Okay, I'll just keep going. Let me know if there's like anything you need to let me know. So, okay, great. Okay, cool. So where we are white, where we're undefined, this is where we're open. This is where we're taking information in, right? So that's where we are receiving energy in, and where we're defined is where we're pushing energy out. That's where we're consistently pushing energy out. So when I say embody your type and operating from yourself, we're talking about operating from where you have consistent energy flow, from where you have definition, right? So for me, this looks like operating using my defined throat, using my defined identity, using my defined emotional center, root, and spleen, and being aware of when I might be operating in the themes of where I'm open, where I'm undefined, okay? So it's important that we look at two things. We look at the type, meaning like projector, generator, manifester, reflector, and then we look at the gates and the centers as themes. So, you know, I would have inconsistent energy in my sacral because it's open, right? It's undefined here. So if I'm trying to lead with the themes of the sacral center, I'm not operating from myself. I would be operating from my not self, and I would not be operating from where I have definition, right? So the first thing that we look at as a principle is how do we operate from where we're consistent, right? And so the way that I have historically taught this and the way that I have figured this out for myself when I say embody your type is embody being a projector. And so the best way is to, like in my experience, is to work with archetypes. And so like having studied a lot of psychology, a lot of psychoanalysis and Carl Jung and Maureen Murdoch, I have found that using archetypes as a way to think about energy patterns is probably the most effective way of embodying that energy pattern, right? So if anyone has studied like Jung's work, you know, if anyone's like kind of studied even, who's that woman that does the thing? Anyway, there are like light archetypes and dark archetypes, you know, in consciousness. And, you know, there's like the ruler, the artist, the joker, the maiden, right? The lover. Like there are so many. And a couple of my friends who teach embodiments, Carolyn Mace, thank you. Yes. I love that I just said, who's that woman? And everyone knows who I'm talking about. That's hilarious. That's how you know that you have everyone on the right call, because everyone's like, I know who that woman is. That's so funny. So in the Marketing with Your Unique Blueprint book, I have marketing archetypes, right? And so is anyone on the call right now who's actually read the book? I think Sophie's obviously read the book. So for the marketing archetypes, I've pioneered that manifestors are the revolutionaries, right? And so it's about embodying that revolutionary energy. So for anyone who hasn't read it, I definitely recommend like downloading it and then getting a copy so that you can go through the archetypes, because it's going to be super helpful to understand like how you can show up using that energy, right? Reflectors, the mirror, projectors, the guide. And so when I show up in the world, I show up as the guide. I'm always thinking like, how can I guide energy, right, as a projector? And so that shows up in everything, and it's just about applying that archetype into different contexts. And so when I talk about selling with human design and embodying like my type, I'm talking about selling as a guide if you're a projector, right? So that's what principle number 1 is. Now, number 2 is creating an inbound process. So I'm sure everybody here is hopefully probably really sick of like cold DMs and is like, I don't want to do that ever. That's a terrible strategy. It's ridiculous. So you can't have sales conversations if you're not like in a conversation with somebody, right? So like, how do you generate a conversation with somebody, especially, you know, for most of us, like if you are a projector, you need to be invited into a conversation. So if you're a projector, how do you sell if you need to be invited? Like how do you do that, right? And if you're a generator or a manager, you'll probably find also that the conversations can sometimes feel quite flat, you know, if you're having them. Like it's kind of like, you know, it can either be like really exciting or it can be kind of flat. And so it's like, how do you consistently get that good energy, right? We're talking about a consistent, predictable process that is working on every level, right? The confidence, the certainty, the energetic principles, and the integrity. So what I did in this launch was, and this was the first time that I had really done this, and I'd actually, no, it's not the first time, it's the second time I did it, but I did this in a kind of a different and unique way. I experimented with this in October of last year. Yes, so okay, In October of last year, I created an inbound system where I booked 25 sales calls and they had to go through an application form. So they were really, really qualified. And by the time I was on a call with somebody, I knew exactly what was going on for them. And it was like a really great process. But in March, what I did was, obviously I had people going into my DMs, which is a little bit different to a sales call. So I'm a freelancer. I like experimenting with stuff to make sure that I kind of, have the full scope of like what's working and why does it work and what feels good and why doesn't it feel good. So Eliza's asking, can Manny's initiate calls? And Sophie's response is yes, Manny's can initiate calls typically, but it depends on your channels. Even as a manifestor, you might have some projected channels which require an invitation. Thank you. Great answer. So I've typically seen that. And so this whole theory came from the conversation that I was having with like my affiliate manager, who was a manifesting generator. And he was like telling me how he sells. And I was like, no, that doesn't work for me ever. So one of the first business coaches I ever had was a ManiGen, and he gave me a sales script. And I was like, this doesn't feel good. I don't like it. It didn't work. It kind of only worked a small percentage of the time. And when it did, it was like this, just like a weird feeling. It was like, I don't know, I didn't feel like, obviously as a projector, you need to be recognized, right? And so when someone comes to you and recognizes you, it's a very different feeling to sort of sitting there and like kind of making a situation work. Do you know what I mean? Like being a projector and like actually operating in that energy is like one of the most beautiful experiences in the world. So I wasn't experiencing that. And it's like, you don't want to be robbed of experiencing the gift of who you are by being given a system that somebody else has built that just isn't going to work for you. So what was really interesting is that we found that in sales conversations with generators and ManiGens, that there is a lot of back and forth. There's a lot of like ping ponging around. It is kind of like a table tennis game. And so in conversations, he would respond to people and just continue to ask more questions until he found the question that would like turn his sacral on and get him excited to kind of like go into it. So he basically kept throwing the ball back with his prospects until finally like his sacral was like, yes, like there's something that I want to talk about and now I'm actually engaged. So he would get into conversations that he wouldn't necessarily be turned on by, but he would continue to go until he was turned on. Whereas for me, the way that I coach when I'm like in a sales, the way that I sell in a sales conversation as a projector is that it's actually a coaching process. Who's that? Where's that noise coming from? Okay. So in a sales conversation as a projector, it becomes a process where I'm essentially guiding them to come to a point of clarity and to come to a point of feeling like they are clear. And so there's a real guidance happening. And I'm not really going back and forth. I don't have questions prepared. For me, it's like I'm very much penetrating to see who they are, right? Which is a very projector thing. I'm like, how can I get to the truest essence of you as soon as possible so that I can see you? And then once I see you, like that's the game for me. It's like, how do I see you? So how can I kind of demask you so that I can see who you really are and what you're really desiring and what you're really wanting? And so like when I go into a sales conversation, my objective as a projector is to see them and like, what's the fastest way and the most effective way that I can do that? How can I see them, right? Or how can they feel seen? Because again, it's both sides, right? So I've kind of like gone off track from point 2 to like a totally different point. But my point about creating an inbound system is that what I did was I created an offer where people were incentivized to land in my inbox and then ask me to initiate that process with them, right? So I call this like the assessment strategy. And essentially, I put out an offer using human design where I was like, if you are on the fence about joining my program, hop into my inbox with the word assessment and let me know like what it is that you need to know about this program, about this offer. And in this assessment, I will tell you if there is an alignment based on your chart with what you're doing, with what you want to create, right? So I will actually review and do like a quick kind of 5-minute audit or a 2-minute audit of your chart and of your sort of business of the way that you're showing up online or the way that you're showing up in this context. And I will look for the incongruencies. And if there are incongruencies, I will let you know what I see. And I'll do that in like a 10 to 15 minute assessment conversation. And we can talk about if this program would be the right program to help you basically like move away and become congruent from the way that you're showing up in your business in this context to the way that you're designed to show up, right? And so that was an inbound system that generated 126 inquiries in my DMs to the point where I had to turn it all off. So it's the same approach, even if you want to do sales calls. Like if you have a high ticket program and you're selling something for like 10, 20 or $50,000 and you actually, obviously you want to have a deeper conversation. So like I do calls or I have meetings if I'm doing something custom and I'm scoping out what the relationship looks like at a custom level. So like for a group program, I wouldn't ever do a sales call anymore. But for a bespoke consulting job, if someone's like, hey, like I have this big project and like, could you, do strategy and kind of like write copy and something, like, of course I'll have a sales call because I need to know the details of the project, right? So in that scenario, to generate those conversations, this is what the inbound system is. So depending on what your offers are, it's important that you know how to draw people towards you so that you're not working against your energy and against your type. Does that make sense to everyone? Yes. Okay, great. Makes perfect sense. Amazing. Awesome, Cody. So it's really important, obviously, that you're working with your type as whatever type you are, right? And most of the time that means you need to have an inbound system, right? And so the things that go into an inbound system are like knowing how to frame discovery calls, knowing how to frame like what an offer or incentive could be that gets someone into your inbox where they're interested in you and interested in what you have to offer, right? And to do that, it's about having a compelling offer. It's about establishing authority. And then it's about how to actually navigate that conversation afterwards. So I kind of skipped ahead before and I was talking about selling as your type. So I've kind of already talked about this. So principle number 3 is selling as your type, right? So for years, I was selling as a generator and I had no idea. And it was really only until within the last year and a bit that I was like, oh, yeah, I can also apply this to this context in this area of business. And I was like, okay, cool. And so then I started selling as a projector. And the result, if anyone received my email yesterday, is that when I have sales conversations with people, I get feedback like, oh my God, this is so great. How can I give you more money? I want to tip you. This was such a pleasurable experience. I was so excited to buy from you. You're such a sales queen. And it was kind of like at the point where someone said that to me that I was like, oh, I've never considered myself to be like a sales queen. But I kept getting that feedback again and again and again. And I was like, yeah, actually, like I have processes for this. Like I have systems for this that consistently work. And so, yeah, it was when people started continuously asking me to teach them. I had so many people ask me to teach them this content that I was like, all right, I'll do it. So, the invitations were coming. So it's really important that you are, first of all, embodying your type, right? So I would start with the marketing with your unique blueprint book and looking at like, what is your archetype? And then, selling as that archetype in more detail, right? So obviously I'll cover a lot of these principles in detail inside the Sales by Design program. But I am giving you a top line overview of what all of the principles are that we'll be covering, so that if you jump in and join us inside Sales by Human Design, you'll be going in and learning this and actually going into charts, and you'll get the system completely, as well as all of the steps in the process. So if anyone has any questions about that, you can obviously ask me after the class. So principle number 4 is knowing their desires. And I think this is probably the most important thing. And I think this is like where there's the most work to be done in the industry, because where people are selling, there are so many assumptions that are made. And this is where people tend to get the most triggered, right? Like this is where people, are like, well, how dare you think that? And this is where I get the most triggered, because I'm like, there's nothing worse than when you're in a conversation with somebody, like this really gets me. People are like, oh, do you need more clients? Or like someone actually was so funny. Someone was in my inbox in the last launch and they were like, actually, I put a screenshot of it up on my profile because I thought it was so funny. I really want to show you because I just think it's so funny. If I can just quickly bring it up. Anyway, she was like, hi, like it was very clearly like a cold DM and just like a copy paste templated strategy, right? And she was like, oh, it's very clear that like, you know, you have a good top of funnel, but do you have like a bottom of funnel or something? And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, who are you? What the fuck? Oh my God. Here we go. Okay. This is so funny. Okay. So this person was like, she just cold DMs me, my most common piece of business advice, offer more value and charge higher prices. I was like, why are you, so this is what happens, right? When we don't take time to establish a relationship and to actually listen, and we don't look at who they are and why they're here, what their motivations are, what they're desiring, and why they're attracted to you, like why they're actually here in a conversation with you. If we're not doing that, then we're making assumptions. And in a conversation with your partner, right? Like it always comes back to relationships because this is just relationship building. If you are having a conversation with your lover, your boyfriend, girlfriend, partner, would you ever assume? No, because you know it's going to lead to a huge fight, right? Like you know that it's going to blow up and they're going to get angry at you and probably throw a plate at you, like depending on, you know, if they're a Leo or not. My ex is a Leo. So, you know, she's making an assumption here that I'm not offering value. And she's making an assumption that like maybe I'm charging too little. And so whenever we receive, and this is just like basic human psychology, right? Whenever we receive a message like this, where we are spoken to and we're not actually seen, we're not heard, and they're making assumptions about us, we immediately like draw our walls up and we go, who the hell are you? You don't know anything about me. Like you're clearly not listening, right? So we do that with our partners as well. The moment, like, imagine you had a conversation with your partner last week and you told them something really important. And then, you know, just now you have another conversation and it's like they didn't hear you. And you're like, I said that last week. And then, like, how mad do you get? Right. So because we don't like it when we don't feel heard. So so then my hilarious response. So she was like, well, I'm offering this, da 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 da. And I was like, I was just a smart ass. I was like, I'm definitely making more money. So that's my point. My point is that I got that. I laughed super hard and I was just like, this is hilarious. Um, because no one likes that. No one likes when assumptions are made about them. So the aim of the game here is to never make assumptions. And the way that you do that, the way that you don't make assumptions about people is by actually taking the time to get to know them in a conversation. And what I have found to be the best way to do that when I'm not spending, you know, like 6 months building a relationship with someone is to look at their human design chart and look at their not self. So remember, we have the self and we have the not self, right? And where we are white, where we are undefined, where we are in our not self, that is where we are attracting, it's where we are pulling, it's where we are desiring. And it's ultimately where we are going to be, like, we're pulling things towards us, where we're attracting in all of our desires. So like now Napoleon Hill says, the seed of all success, like the root of all success starts with the seed of desire. So this is it. Within our profiles, our desire comes from our not self. Because think about it like this: if you are operating from yourself, you're operating from a place of wholeness. If you're whole and if you're complete, you don't need anything, you don't desire anything, you're whole and complete. And so this is the paradox that we live in. And this is where it kind of gets a little bit deep, right? Is that we are spiritual beings living on a material plane. So we live in a 3D reality. We live in a 3D world where we have bodies, we are with our bodies, but we know, most of us at least, probably everyone here on this call knows that we are energy, right? People here know that we are not our bodies. We are with them, right? So how do we live in a 3D world where we don't identify as the 3D, but we still have to operate within that realm? We have to live in a world full of paradoxes. And this is why human design is such a great system, because it literally shows us where and how we can do that. Because as much as we all have, like, we all have our charts, within that chart, we have our infinite immortal self, and we have our 3D self as well. We have the physical, right? And so coming back to this point of we take advantage from where we are open and we operate from where we are defined. Where we're open is where we're desiring. And so we take advantage of that. We take advantage from where we are not enough, from where we're not whole. We use that to then create desire and experience. And then we live in our wholeness. But if we want something, we have to desire it first. Like, if anyone understands like the basic law of attraction principles, you can't create and manifest something unless you desire it. And desire is different to attachment. So I'm talking about desire. I'm talking about attraction. I'm not talking about attachment. And the way that we look at this is by looking at what we are naturally inclined to pull in. So for example, within my chart that we all looked at before, I am undefined in my ego, in my will center. The themes of the ego and the will are self-improvement, wanting to prove yourself. And every center obviously has a shadow side and a high frequency, right? Just like within every gene key, there's a shadow, a gift, and a city. Within every aspect of self, there is black and white. There is always shadow and light. And so the shadow aspect of the will center is needing to prove yourself, right? It's feeling not enough. It's feeling like I've got to prove myself. I've got to prove myself. I need to get another certificate. I need to do another training program, or I need to show them that I'm good enough, right? That's the shadow side. And that's when we can end up in toxic behaviors. But the high frequency of that is being driven and motivated by a desire to improve, right? So I can allow myself to set goals and to create experiences based on my desire to feel whole and complete in my ego center. So I'm always looking to improve myself. I'm always looking to improve my business. I'm always looking to improve my writing or my programs or something. There's a deep desire for self-improvement. Things can always be better. And that could be shadowy and it could be toxic, or I can use that to create experiences. But here's the thing. When I'm talking about knowing your prospect's desires in a conversation, what I'm really talking about is knowing where they have desire. So there's two sides of this. One is knowing where you have desire, where you are pulling, and how to set goals for yourself. And then two is exactly. So someone just said, desires from the not self is like a Demartini void. Exactly. That's precisely it. So Dr. John Demartini, I'm a Demartini method facilitator as well, by the way, if anyone knows Demartini, he's a super cool dude. Crazy, eccentric, hilarious. So Demartini talks about voids and values. And he basically says that all of our values are created from a void. And so we have a hierarchy of values. And everyone has a unique hierarchy of values. And those values are based on our voids. So where we are lacking creates a deep desire for what we want to create. So where we are in our not self creates a deep desire for what we want to create. So being able to interpret someone's chart and know where they are in their not self and where they have a deep desire from lack is going to help you determine knowing what they want to create, what experiences they ultimately want to pull in. So here's the thing, and I said this, in one of my pieces before this week. If someone was lactose intolerant and they had let's say someone wants dessert, but they have no desire for ice cream, right? Like they just don't want ice cream. They don't want ice cream because they're lactose intolerant. You wouldn't, if you had a restaurant, go up to that person and sell them ice cream. No. And would you, if you knew how to use the map, know exactly what they did want? Of course you would. So why would you waste your time making any assumptions about what they want when instead you can review their chart and actually determine what their real desires are? Like if someone comes to me and if they are defined in their ajna, I don't sell them systems. I don't sell them processes. I don't sell them templates. I don't sell them plug and play. If someone is defined in their head, I do not sell them answers to questions. I do not sell them the answers I do not sell them the truth. I do not sell them certainty. They don't care. Do you know who never bought my psychic readings? People with defined heads. They don't care about psychic readings, man. They don't care about answers to questions because they're not asking them. They're not. I tell you what, I tried before I started studying human design. I tried selling psychic reading to one of my friends who had a defined head and a defined ajna, and he could not have been less interested. He was just like, it was really funny. And I've had some clients with defined heads who are just like, nah, like why would I want that? So looking at where people are undefined, looking at those themes of where they're undefined is going to help you determine exactly what their desires are. And it's going to help you progress in that conversation with them to know what's appropriate for them, right? And to also know like what in you they're attracted to as well, so that you can operate from more of where you are defined. Awesome. Cool. So obviously, like inside the Sales by Design program, we're going to go through all of this in detail. We're going to go through scenarios. We're going to cover the centers and all of that in a great level of detail for those who decide to take the next step. Principle number 5 is about qualifying. So this is about, and again, this is connected to principle number 4. It's about making sure that you can actually help them and that they're the right fit. So in the qualification process, in every sales process, we have to qualify, right? So like I said before, we don't make assumptions. We also have to qualify. And what this means is that we have to make sure that we actually have the skills to help them. We have the experience to help them, that they are the right candidate, that they kind of fit the right category of someone that we know that we can help. And we can do that energetically. You know, like you can actually see in someone's chart if you would be able to help them or not. And again, like I've looked at someone's chart many a time and turned them away, or kind of said, honestly, like, you know what, based on this, I don't think that I would be the right person to help you, because this is what I teach and this is the way that I teach it. And that doesn't look like the way that you learn. That doesn't look like the way that you were really like, you don't want to go in this direction, you know? And so qualifying is really important to basically establish the right fit. And when you're qualifying, how do you do that? How do you also, there's so many aspects to qualification. So one aspect is actually getting them to send you their chart. And I don't know how many people are already doing this in their sales process, but you really want to get them to send you their chart so that, you know, you can get a sense of who you're actually talking to, and you can get a sense of who you're looking at, and you can see like what that kind of attraction process and what that dynamic is. Second, know that when you're actually entering into a conversation with somebody, that you are not wasting your time and that they're not wasting their time. But this is really more for you to know that you're not wasting your time. So I have qualifying questions that I can ask people either in the application form if it's to book in a call, or at the start of this sales conversation in the DM process, to establish finding out exactly what they need to know, so that I'm not just going around in circles. Because I'd love to know here, like, how many people have a sales conversation and it kind of just like loops around and you don't really like, is anyone here 100% clear on how to go from like A to B when they're in a sales conversation? Like you start and then you get to the end and it's just like, these are the steps. Does anyone have that? Not really. Cool. That's why you're here. Great. So what I'm talking about when I say qualification process is like, you come in, you look at who they are, you look at who you are. There are certain criteria that you establish, right? Then once you've established those criteria, you basically want to pre-handle their objections by finding out exactly what it is that those objections are. And a lot of the time when someone goes into a sales conversation, they don't necessarily know yet. So when I go into a conversation with somebody, because I'm very like self-taught and very like self-aware, like I'm also very like high D energy on the disc profile. Like I go in and I go, hey, name, like I'm interested in working with you. This is what I want. This is what I need. Jess is laughing because she's like been on coaching calls with me and she knows how direct I am. She's like, yeah, Phoebe's so direct. So I'm like, so for example, like I recently had a conversation with Amanda Bucci because I was interested in potentially working with her. And I was like, hey, this is why I'm contacting you. I'm contacting you because I think that you're an expert in this area. Basically, this is where I am right now. And this is what I think the problem is. So when I go into a conversation, I go in with problem awareness, or I go in with like, exactly what the solution is for me. And I'm like, so the ideal solution is this. And I just give it to, I give it to them straight. And I'm like, what do you think about that? Or I'll be like, are you available? What are your rates? And what does this process of working together look like? So I'm like a dream prospect because I go in and I establish all of that criteria up front. But there's like maybe 100 people in the world like me who will go into a sales conversation and do that. Most people don't do that because they don't have clarity on what they want. They don't have clarity on what the challenges are for them, and they don't know anything about you. Maybe they haven't studied you. Maybe they know a little bit about you. A lot of the time, you know, like I'll be in conversations with somebody and they'll say, I just feel drawn to you. And I'll be like, cool, like that's pretty vague, you know. Sometimes they'll be like, oh, I'm drawn to you because of X, Y, Z. And I'm like, great. But rarely ever does someone come in and say, this is what I think my problem is, this is what I want, and this is how I think I'm going to get it. And the reason why I'm coming to you is because I know that you can do that. Rarely ever. So that means that it's our job as business owners and as coaches and facilitators and healers to help someone with that process get that level of clarity that I have when I go into a conversation with Amanda Bucci, right? Because then it makes it easy for both parties to go, well, this is a great fit and this is exactly what I do. And yes, I would love to work with you. And this is the offer and this is the price point and this is what it looks like to work with me. And both people go, great, done in like 2 minutes. And that's what we want. That's the aim of the game. And so for anyone who does want that, that's exactly what I'm going to be teaching inside the Sales by Design 4-week program, right? So the qualifying process is really important. It's about having a process where you can take someone to help them get clarity on exactly who they are, exactly what they want, exactly what the deal is. And that just basically involves questions. So like Demartini says this, Demartini says, the quality of our lives is determined by the quality of the questions that we ask. This is what I'm going to say in this context. The quality of the relationships that we have and that we build is determined on the quality of the questions that we ask at the beginning of that relationship building process. So the questions that you ask your prospects when you are getting to know them, when you are building a relationship with them in that early phase, are critical, because that's how you are going to be able to create an opportunity for yourself to listen and get to know them so that they feel seen, so that they feel heard, and so that they know that you are the right person for them and they can make a decision easily, that you can make a decision easily. Neither parties are going to be able to make a decision if you don't actually know how to get to know each other. And all this is communication. It's communication mastery. And that leads me to our 6th and final principle, which is making sure that both parties are making the correct decision. And so the way that we do this is by using our authority and also teaching our prospects to use their authority if they're new to human design as well. And this can be done in a very simple and very basic way. So when I'm in a conversation with somebody, I did this a lot throughout the launch where I was having conversations with people. Especially in the nature of our work with what we do, where we're talking about healing and we're talking about, maybe even like larger investments, for example, they can feel very uncertain. They can feel very unclear. And they don't, a lot of the time when we're talking about transformation, we're talking about people who might be a little bit denser, there's going to be an aspect of, I don't trust myself as a prospect. Like, or maybe and we're talking about our industry of coaching, right? Maybe they've worked with so many coaches before, or maybe they've worked with so many healers before, and they just don't trust themselves in how to make a decision. Or they might be early in their personal development journey and they don't know how to trust themselves in making a decision. So please raise your hand if you've ever been in a conversation with somebody, or even if you've ever had a client, like a coaching client who said, I just don't know if I can trust myself. Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Right. It's super, super common. They're like, I'm skeptical. I've been burned before. I just don't know how to listen to my intuition. I don't know if I am making the correct decision, because they're so disconnected from themselves. And so this is like the most important principle for me, is teaching them in that process, if they're at this point, how to make a correct decision for them, as well as obviously me listening to my authority at the same time. So it's 2 ways again. So I've got a couple of questions here that I'll look at in the chat. So Kiara, I'm curious with this, are we going to be able to genuinely transmit something of value, or will they always need someone with that defined center? I don't want to create dependence. That's an amazing question. Thank you so much for asking that. We don't want to create codependence ever. right? And so what Kiara's asking is, how do we encourage and empower our clients so that they don't always need us? Because we know for a fact that we can provide and create electromagnetic channels. We know that there can be an electricity there where they're like, oh, I need that, they're like, oh, I need your gate 56, or like, I need your this and I need your this. So we talk about borrowing energy and understanding the difference between borrowing and like plugging in and plugging out and not creating dependency. But yes is the answer to your question. We can always empower people to make correct decisions from their authorities. And it's about giving them the tools quickly and effectively so that they can do that at any point in time. So I have a process where I help every authority to establish how they can trust themselves with that authority in like 5 minutes. And they don't need me to be able to do that because it's just a process of listening to their authority. And for those of you who are already human design teachers, you probably already have a way of doing this that you work with your clients. How do you engage a sacral? How do you turn it on? Right? How do you listen to your emotional authority? I'm sure you already have your own ways. And so I have a way that I do this in the sales process where if someone with a sacral authority is like, I'm just not sure, in the space of like 3 to 5 minutes, I kind of have to get them to connect into their bodies and their body intelligence. And to be honest with you, like when I'm really having to get to this point where I'm trying to get someone to listen to their authority, this can actually become a 2 to 3 day process, because at this point I'm getting them to go and do an exercise. So I have exercises that I tell people to go and do, and then I tell them to come back to me after they've done the exercise, because you can't really make a decision in 2 to 3 minutes if we're at the point where they don't trust themselves. Because to trust yourself it's not a 30-second process. To trust yourself can take some time, right? It doesn't have to take 6 months or a year. It can be done in a couple of days. It can be done in a couple of hours. But generally, on average, if I'm at this point, and this is why this is last with someone, this process can take 24 to 48 hours, at most 72 hours, for someone to come back and be like, oh, I did the exercise that you told me to do, and this is how I feel, and it's a yes or it's a no. And I've gotten both. I've had people come back and be like, yeah, I did the exercise you gave me and it's a no. And I'm like, cool, thank you. But they always come back. You never have to chase them. They always come back because you gave them an exercise, and they want to report back like good students because you gave them homework, right? Most of the time, it's like, it'd be very rare for someone to be engaged with you at that point and that level and not want to come back after you've given them an exercise. And do you know what else as well is that, like, when I'm going through this process with people, I actually feel so great about it, because I'm like, before we've even started working together, I've already given them so much value. I've listened to them, I've seen them, and I've already started teaching them about themselves. And how beautiful is that? That even if it's a no, even if it's not a right fit, like they now trust themselves just that little bit more. And isn't that lovely? And I feel really good about it whenever I do this process with someone, because it is generous, but like it's a great thing to do for both people. Like everybody wins. So Eliza, this also shows how important our marketing is to establish who we are and what a relationship with us would look like, and that you get potential clients. Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, like in the wider scheme of business, there's, obviously I have my signature program, the Content Emporium, which teaches people how to write content and market based on their human design. So there's that, and that's going to be back on again in August. We just wrapped up a round of the Content Emporium. So right now, obviously we're looking at establishing a sales process based on human design, where when people are coming into your inbox, you actually have like that system. So, obviously there are so many components of business. It's operations, finance. It's not just one simple trick. But in saying that, I specialize in sales and marketing. Awesome. Eliza, you're fabulous during the last launch, encouraging me to listen to my authority. Thank you, love. There you go. So you have someone here that I had a conversation with in our last launch. Denise, when any of my clients ask me what they should do, I tell them to go with their inner authority. Amazing. And so people here are already doing that. Kiara, for example, let's say you have a defined throat. If we then step out of your field later, do we still have improved capacity to communicate? So not much with the decision making, but with the value that we're selling. That is a great question. Okay, cool. So the question for everyone again is, hypothetically, let's say, so I have a defined throat. So let's say a client of mine who's in a container with me has an undefined throat. When they're in the container with me, they're effectively borrowing some of my energy. then when they exit the container, are they still going to have this, like, the improved capacity to communicate? That's the question. And my answer to this is that you don't want to be running a business on borrowed energy. So the aim of the game is for everyone to be operating where they are defined, where they're consistent, and to not be borrowing energy. Whenever we borrow energy, and like I borrow sacral energy all the time, but it's, you know, it's a process of like unplugging from that on a daily and a weekly basis, right? Like most of my team members are sacral, most of them. Not that I'm really in their physical presence that much, but you know, still. It's important that we unplug, and it's important that we are teaching our clients to operate from where they have definition, from where they're consistent in their energy, and that they're aware of when they're borrowing, and they can deplug and actually just operate from where they are whole and from their self, essentially. Cool. Alicia, I'm finding too with living my design for numerous years that I mostly only attract those who have gates to my gates, i.e. my nut self, such as I have 25, and every client the past few years has had gate 51. Ah, yes, your electromagnetic connections. Yeah, it's really interesting. Sophie finds that a lot as well. Already answering the questions in the chat, Soph. Okay. Nicola, is it only in physical presence where we borrow energy? I don't want to answer this question incorrectly. I feel like it's kind of a yes and a no. So I'm going to answer it in a vague way. When we're in someone's physical presence and we're in their physical aura, that's when you get it like supercharged, right? Like because your auras are interacting with their auras. I think that to an extent, when you're having phone calls and when you're like having this energy, like the energy's still there. Is it the same? Not really. It's like, think about it like this. If you're having a long distance relationship with someone and you're having phone sex, is that still sex? Kind of. Is it the same? Not really. Hope that answers your question. Definitely, I think it does. If anyone who's like getting to know me, like I just like do hilarious analogies all the time. And they're always like sexual, or they're always like really kind of funny and like inappropriate slightly. So I always make it very entertaining. Cool. So correct decisions on both sides by listening to your authority and listening to their authority. And those are the 6 principles. So I'm just going to repeat that again, right? So what we're really talking about here are the 6 principles of selling with human design. This is what I've distilled my system down to: embodying your type, knowing what makes you attractive, operating from where you're defined, and knowing who you are. So okay. Thank you for bearing with me on that. My mouth just disappeared. Whoa. Okay, hold on, there it is. All right, beautiful. So number 4 is knowing their desires, understanding where they are pulling in, where they're attracting, and knowing that that's ultimately going to be the right fit, right? So that's going to lead you here to qualifying and establishing action fit. So we need to have a qualification process. We need to be able to determine their desires, because you wouldn't sell someone ice cream if they were lactose intolerant, right? So let's just remember that. And then lastly, making sure that both parties are making the correct decisions. So those are the 6 principles of selling with our human design. Does that make sense to everybody? Oh my God, the Bali Wi-Fi. Oh, awesome, amazing. So I'm going to skip over this because everybody is already like super clear on this. I just wanted to touch again on the marketing archetype and drop the link to the book. So it's in the chat. Obviously, I dropped it in earlier. Marketing archetypes. We all have. This is as to market and the role that we've chosen to play. So effectively, when I talked about principle number 1, when I talked about embodying our type, this is going to be the first stepping stone to really help everyone do that. And you know, I really believe that if you read this book and if you start practicing now. I would love for a couple of case studies that I have here around specifically people who have really said in conversation with me that their human design and the aspect of learning this and integrating it into the marketing, into their sales process, into their business has ultimately been a huge driver. And so I've got 3 different types here. So I have a generator, a manifestor, and a projector. So Nick Toth is a 2/4 splenic Manny. And when she went through my other program for marketing, she found her mojo, became inspired, and really stepped into her manifestor power. And like knowing who she was before and knowing the way that she was operating before versus the way that she's operating in business now is completely different. And she shared with me recently that she's had her biggest quarter in business ever without any ads. And she's on track to making $250,000 this year, about 240,000. She had an $80,000 quarter, which was really, really incredible. And so again, by applying, the archetypes, right? By applying the principles in, she's really seen like a huge improvement from where she was before. She was making about 10K a month to where she is now, and she's doing about 30K a month. So Amy Lee is another one of my former clients who is a generator. She's a 5/1 pure generator. And she specifically has said that she has started living by her generator response. And previous to this, she had no idea how to turn her sacral on, right? Like not a clue. And now she writes content by engaging her sacral. Everything she does is engaging her sacral. She doesn't even have sales conversations anymore. And I actually have a video of her like saying that on the phone, which is saying that on the call, which is like, I don't even have sales conversations anymore, which is amazing. So she has had 2 sold out launches, and she's on track for a $500,000 launch, a $500,000 a year the last time that we spoke, which was maybe like 1-2 months ago. Nima, for any of my projector friends, Nima is a 6/2 projector. And when he applied these principles, and again, the reason why I'm sharing all of these stories with you guys is because they have specifically said that it was the human design aspect that had really transformed their businesses. And so when Nima figured out how to be the guide, and again, I have a video of him saying like, being the guide changed everything for me, right? And so, because he was kind of like very on stage, and I would say that Nima was probably operating more as a manifestor, and he was definitely operating as a manifestor man, and it was just like not working for him. And yeah, he really loved the energetic principles. He really loved like realizing that he was the guide and taking a step back. And he even started saying in some of his material, like, I'm just your guide on the side, and it's all about you. Which is so different to the way that he was doing things before, whereas he was like trying to sell himself. He was like, buy me, I'm amazing. And it was like, no, dude, like be the guy. It's the opposite of that. It's when he started doing that, started getting like 100K months pretty consistently. And he's on track to do $1 million this year. But more importantly, like he's more confident than he's ever been, especially in the sales process, where he's historically felt super sleazy and super inauthentic about sales. And now he's actually like connected to himself, and he feels like the world really sees him. So what I'm about to introduce to you now is my brand new 4-week live program, Sales by Human Design. And I'm going to take you through the 6 principles in detail of my sales process that are responsible for not only my $294,000 launch, my $60,000 day, and all of those people in my inbox, but a lot of the success that some of my most clients have seen. So this is going to be the first time that I'm teaching this. I will be teaching it live over the period of 4. So what you're going to be getting is you're going to be in a container with me where you have 4 weekly live calls with me. So this is for you if you're already in business, you already have a marketable skill, and you know that you're great at what you do and you can facilitate transformation. There is an early bird. So I am offering, thank you so much for sticking with me. I really appreciate that everyone's like, you know what, I'm gonna deal with your Bali internet. 53 of you, amazing. So there is going to be a $200 off early bird when you sign up before Tuesday. So the early bird special, the pay in full is $700, and the early bird will be $500 when you pay in full. The payment plan will be 3 installments of $250. When you pay in full, you'll also get access to a bonus on how to run a successful affiliate program. So my affiliate program has generated between 20 to 30% in additional revenue for my business over the last 18 months. And over the last launch, it was somewhere between 30 to 40%. So if anyone knows how to run a successful affiliate program, it's me. And when you pay in full for this program only, you will be getting that bonus. So I'm going to drop the link in the chat, and we can now answer some questions and do some hot seats for anyone who wants to know anything that we've talked about today. So The link to sign up to Sales by Human Design is in the chat. Like I said, the early bird discount is $200 off. The pay in full is really, really affordable. And to be in a container with me for 4 weeks this is an extremely accessible price point. So is anyone here have any questions about anything that we've talked about today? Would anyone like to be in the hot seat? Would anyone like to talk about the sales process or about selling by design in particular? Let me know. You can jump on. I know I'm pretty crazy to do this at this point, but it was a great idea. It was a pretty last minute thing. And I was like, you know what? Creative because so many people asked for it. And people were just like, how do you do this? How do you do this? And I was like, all right. Invitation, seen, recognized, it's happening. So does anyone have any questions about anything that we've discussed? Feel free to just like pop them in the chat. You can come on, let me know. Do I have dates for it? Yes. Okay, great question. So more of the details of the dates. So the calls will be on this time. So like literally the same time as this masterclass. And we're kicking off in 1 week. So in exactly 1 week from now if you're in North America, it'll be the Thursday, the 8th of July will be the first call at 8 p.m. EST. And so it'll be 4 weeks starting from the 8th. When does the early bird end? The early bird is $500 off, and the early bird ends on Tuesday, the 6th of July. Oh, by the way, when you do the early bird, the way to do that is that it should be automatic, but just in case it's not, it's a coupon code that is Sales by Human Design in capital letters. So that takes the 200 off. Okay, good spot. There you go, boom. Awesome. So yeah, so you have the weekend for the early bird. So there's not a lot of pressure because, you know, integrity. Awesome. Is anyone else like any questions? They want to go through anything? You're welcome, Summer. Appreciate that. Hey, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here, everyone. Oh, look, hey, Nikki, it's good to see you. Look at that. Awesome. Yeah, so everyone with an emotional authority has time to sleep on it, basically. Amazing. All right, Alicia, thank you. You're welcome. All right, everyone, thank you so much for coming today. Yes, it is good for course creators. Obviously, depending on your business model, there are going to be some things that are going to be more valuable to people who are selling coaching, one-on-one or group programs. If you're selling a course, it depends on the way that you're marketing that course. Like if you have a course and you are still largely marketing it organically and having sales conversations, then yes, this is going to be really helpful. If you already have a funnel and that's like pretty automated, then like maybe 50% of this is going to be valuable to you. And if you're quite new to human design, then I'm going to be going through all of the basics from scratch. So the point of this program is that basically anyone will be able to enter it with a very like beginner level entry knowledge of human design, and that you'll be able to have like plug and play system so that you can walk away and implement it into your business, as well as everyone who's already maybe more advanced in human design that knows how everything works, but maybe not how to apply it to this particular context of how to really master their sales process. So you are getting really advanced like energetic and psychological principles on the sales process, coupled with the way to do that using the human design system. So for anyone who knows me, I like to take the best of both worlds and combine it into one process. And I'm doing the same thing here. If anyone does have any other questions at a later point in time over the next week, feel free to hop into my inbox and ask me questions either via Instagram, or if we're connected on Facebook, feel free to send me a message on Facebook. And I'm more than happy to answer those questions for you. I am going to be flying tonight, so I may be offline for a few hours, but I will get back to you within 24 to 48 hours. So awesome. Beautiful. All right. Also, there's also an option to buy a human design reading for anyone who would like a one-on-one human design reading with Sophie, one of our incredible partners. So when you go through to the checkout, there'll be an option to pay for that there if you want to upgrade and add that one-on-one human design reading as well, so that you have the group as well as a one-on-one with Sophie. Amazing. So I have a sales background, and can I learn this to help other people to become better sales consultants? Absolutely, yes. So I taught this system to my affiliate manager, where he taught our internal salespeople and also his other clients. So yes, the system can absolutely be taught if you're a trainer or if you're a sales coach to other people. And I don't really mind about like you doing that. That's fine. If you learn the material and you want to teach it to other people, that's fine. I don't really get weird about like copyright or trademarks or anything like that. Like you can go for it. You know, information's free for all. Cool. And if anyone else has any other questions about the reading, feel free to message Sophie directly. Awesome. And there will be a replay of today. So thank you so much, everyone, for coming live and staying till the end. I really appreciate you. And yeah, hopefully I'll be seeing a lot of you inside the Sales by Design 4-week program. Have an amazing day, everyone. Have an amazing weekend. Ciao.